Welcome to the Limit Free Life Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. I bring you tips, advice, and guest stories about creating work you love. Whatever type of career or business you have or want, I want to help you find more meaning, money, and happiness. Now we are live from Hollywood. Hello, and welcome to this week's Limit Free Life Show. We are here at the beautiful Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California, and we are very excited to have a wonderful guest with us today. Her name is Kavita Melwani, and she is going to give us some really powerful and insightful information on using your intuition to make great business decisions or any kind of decisions. And Kavita has many skills and talents, and I'm going to give you a little background on her, and then we're going to jump into our conversation here. So Kavita is a women's empowerment coach, a highly sensitive woman, and a mother to two beautiful boys. She's a serial entrepreneur who has owned and operated various businesses since 2003. The turning point in her life came when she started to work with a coach to recognize her true gifts and calling. Kavita holds various coaching certifications. She's a hypnotherapist, a Reiki master, and recently completed her certification in becoming a certified money marketing and soul coach. She is on a mission to guide other heart-centered women to find their voice, improve their self-worth, and feel comfortable in their own skin so they can attract abundant lives. So today's topic, we're going to focus on using your intuition to make aligned decisions. And we're also going to just kind of travel through Kavita's journey as a businesswoman and a mother and see, how she is doing it so well, and also get some of the advice that she gives her clients. So, Kavita, welcome. We're really happy that you're here today.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, thanks for that great introduction.
Sure. And so Kavita is zooming in from up in the Bay Area. And Kavita, do you want to just start by giving us a little bit of business, or not even business, but just background on your career, how you got started, how you ended up doing what you do today?
So yes, sure. I would love to talk a little bit about who doesn't like talking about themselves, right?
Some people don't, actually, so I'm glad
yes,
you do.
Very few, but yes, there are some that don't like talking about themselves. So I started my business. I am a serial entrepreneur, as you said in the introduction. And so my first business was in 2002. And since then, I've had different businesses. That first business was a tutoring club franchise.
Oh, nice.
I had a master's in education and moved from Toronto, where I got my master's, to Miami.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I needed to get my teaching certification, and I did not want to teach in the Miami schools. And so I decided to go and open this tutoring center. So I started making money, and then we had to move. And we moved to Dallas, and I had my second child in Dallas. And at that time, I stayed at home for a few years because I had two kids 20 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it kind of got uncomfortable. I really felt like that inner calling of doing something in addition to being a mother,
right?
Which is already a full-time job,
yes,
as all the moms know out there, right?
Yeah, right.
So I decided that I would do something different. I didn't know what, because I did not want to open a tutoring center. I didn't want to teach. Spending time with my kids, I loved my kids.
Yeah.
I also didn't want to spend the rest of my days being with kids. I wanted to be around adults.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I opened an event planning business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I did, I grew up in a jewelry store. My parents have a jewelry business and other businesses in South Texas.
Okay.
So I did a handmade jewelry business.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Yeah.
So I was kind of lost, though, so I did all these things. I was just following, that sounds good, because my parents could, they could help me.
Yeah.
Instead of following my own intuition, which is why I like to talk about that and hopefully support others so they're not in that same confused state that I was at that point in my life. And so I met my first coach with my jewelry business. I was at a networking event, and she was having a vision board workshop.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
And I said, fun. I've never done a vision board. I want to try that. And so I went to her workshop. I was looking through magazines in her workshop, and I didn't know what to put on my vision board.
Wow, that's a good indicator, huh?
hmm
Yeah.
So I was like, should I put this or that? And she came up to me, and I remember her putting her hand right on my shoulder, and I could feel the energy from her hand. And she says to me, "Do you need help?" And it was just the way that she said that, "Do you need help?" And I just felt like she was the person.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. And so did you work with her for a while?
Yes, I did work with her and decided it's what brought me down this path. I have a
Interesting.
bachelor's in psychology,
Okay. Okay.
and I've always been interested in psychology. I started reading about uh, just the whole healing, spiritual realm in high school. My first interest was a book called Many Lives, Many
Oh,
Masters.
yes. I
Yes.
have that on my bookshelf and I have not read it. I've had it for years. It's one of those that just hasn't gotten read. So I need to do that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, just and it's one of those books you don't have to read cover to cover
Yeah.
because he has case studies in there, so you could just pick up and read a case study. So that
Nice.
was really inspiring. And for me, that path from in high school, knowing that I wanted to help people and knowing that I wanted to do it in that way,
Yeah.
and then listening to others and the people pleasing and the wanting to do all the things that. Would allow me to be loved and accepted in my culture, loved and accepted in my family, instead of following my intuition,
Right.
led me on this like kind of, I wouldn't even call it a circle, but it's this path that had so many stops and turns along the way, and it's made me who I am today. And that's not for everybody,
Right.
right?
Right.
So being able to instead at that age make choices that were more in alignment with who I was at the
Right.
time and who I've come back to. So
Yeah, that's lovely. And I'm curious, was it the coach who helped you to tap into your intuition, or were you already doing that? I think so many people are in that situation, especially as moms, where you lose yourself in other people's lives. And so you do feel very lost. And I can relate to that, having the vision board in front of you and not knowing what to put on it. But was your intuition speaking to you then, or did that come about later?
yeah, it was speaking to me then. It's just that I wasn't really necessarily listening to it.
Okay. Okay.
So, um, when my younger son was born, he was born with a lot of health issues. And I followed again what people were telling me, going to the traditional doctors, which nothing against traditional doctors. They just were not able to help Rohan, my younger son. And through a holistic pediatrician, I was able to figure out he had food intolerances and I work with a nutritionist. And so that was when I followed my intuition. That was the first time that I can actually remember saying, this is not right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think I do, as I think back, there are points where I did follow my intuition, but that was a turning point when, that vision board workshop, I can still see myself sitting there, and she put her hand on my shoulder, and I was like, this is going to change my life. This is the way I need to go next. So
nice. Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful. So how did you go from there into hypnotherapy and some of the other things that you're involved in?
That I'm doing. Well, so at that time I said, I'm going to go get a master's in to be a therapist. So I got into a program in Dallas.
Okay.
And I did my first semester, and then my husband was like, we got to move. So we moved to the Bay Area. So after moving here, I had some sessions with my coach, and she suggested coaching as the next step for me.
Right.
And I did some research. I found a coaching certification that I could do from home. And so I did that. And then that led me to hypnosis. Again, I found the book, Many Lives, Many Masters. And I said, I want to learn how to do this.
Okay.
And so that's got me into hypnosis too.
Wonderful. Okay, so you have a lot of things that you can combine in your work, which sounds like it, between the psychology and the hypnosis and the coaching, it sounds like you can really bring about all kinds of change for people, in many situations. So can you give us an example of the type of person that you work with, or if there is a type? I mean,
Yes. So, a lot of people that are in business are told, especially if you work with people, right, that you should have a niche
yeah.
or a niche, however you want to pronounce that word. And I do believe that that's important. And I struggle with that, right? I've struggled with that and figure out what is my niche.
Right.
I ended up attracting other highly sensitive people.
Okay.
And at first I was like, well, it's just business women. And then, oh, it's only women in their, 30s and 40s. And then it was a different age group. But really, the common thread in all my clients is that they're a highly sensitive person.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. What does that mean to people who, it's so funny how these things happen, but I would, and I'll just interrupt for 1 minute and then I'll let you go. But I was in the car on the way to the station and I was talking to my son on the phone, and he was in New York. He walks dogs now to help earn some extra money. So he had this dog on the leash and he's talking to me, and he was a little frustrated with his sister, who is very sensitive, and he had said something to her and she had had a big reaction because, so we were talking about this because he kept saying, she just needs to toughen up and she just needs to be able to, whatever. And, so I'd love to hear kind of your take on what it is to be highly sensitive. And is that the answer, that you just toughen up? I don't think it is, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Right. Yeah. So, what you just shared is part of being highly sensitive is you're emotionally sensitive. And it actually is a temperament. There's a psychologist, Dr. Elaine Aron, that found that 15 to 20% of the population is considered what she deemed highly sensitive person, or HSP.
Okay.
And she actually has an assessment on her website, so you could check if you're a considered highly sensitive person.
Can you give us that name one more time?
Yeah. So her website is hsperson.com.
Okay.
Dr. Elaine Aron.
Okay.
ELAINE.
Thank you.
ARON is how you spell her last name. So, and she found this out. I wish I could remember the exact year, but it's been a while.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of other researchers that have written various books on the topic. And generally, she has on her website a blog describing. Yes, that's the website. There's a blog describing what is a highly sensitive person, and it's your nervous system is heightened.
Okay.
So sounds are louder to you than to others. They're more distracting. And even just some people, my kids are both highly sensitive, and their labels, the labels on the back of blouses and shirts bother them. So I have to cut off all the tags off their t-shirts.
Right.
The seams on the socks bother them.
Yeah.
So it's like that touch and the smells can be really strong too. Your nervous system is stronger.
Okay.
And so it can be a strength because you can use that to strengthen, to make decisions if you're using your intuition.
Okay.
You can be more empathetic, and you can do, she talks about how we are designed to be the royal advisors, right? To be the people that are behind the scenes. In old days, they had the king or the queen, and then they had the person that was next to them that was their advisor.
Right. Oh,
and so that's the roles she sees highly sensitive people being. The spiritual advisors, the people that are there to help support the leaders. And it doesn't mean that you can't be a leader too. You can be a highly sensitive leader.
Okay.
If you are aware of who you are and not trying to live like the other 80% of the population. So honoring who you are, taking care of yourself, and living in alignment with who you are.
Okay. Yeah, yes. That's really interesting. So it is a temperament. It's a way of being for certain people, and so so it isn't about learning to strengthen yourself or be something else. It's about working within who you are, and again. maybe if you can run through some of the strengths again and then some of the challenges, so people out there who may recognize themselves as highly sensitive can understand, and also how it comes up in business. I mean, maybe an example of that.
Oh, yes. So definitely. Highly sensitive people, because we have a heightened nervous system, our senses are heightened, we're able to be aware of subtleties in the environment. So we can actually sense what another person needs. There's high levels of empathy, right?
Okay.
And so if you consider that, if just stepping into business for a moment, if you have that high level of empathy and you're tuning into that when you're meeting with a potential client, you can see how that can be used in a way that's positive for both of you.
Right.
Positive.
Right.
There's also a high level of integrity. That highly sensitive, they have a hard time with injustice in the world, and seeing the injustices. So that can be used for charitable contributions and work, and doing that kind of work in the world. So those are just some of the strengths. You can see that can translate into business as well. On the flip side of that, with any strength, so with integrity, the flip side of integrity would be wanting everything to be very fair. And I see this heightened in kids. So I went to a workshop where they talked about highly sensitive kids and how to raise them. And one of the things they talked about was that when they're kids, the strengths are there, but also the flip side of them, the weaknesses. I hesitate to use that word.
I know. It's. I try to use challenge, struggle. Yeah.
The struggle, the challenges are heightened too, because their brains are still being developed, right?
Yeah.
So high levels of integrity means like they also want everything to be exactly fair. So my boys are both highly sensitive, and if I do one thing for one kid, I have to do exactly the same thing the same way for the other. And they've started writing notes to say, well, mommy helped with this next time, and so now I understand where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And so it's less frustrating.
Yeah, because there's a lot of emotion and feeling that comes up that other people may not relate to, I think. So, I mean, I can at least see that with my daughter and trying to explain it to my son. And I think there are a lot of inferences made, and, it's kind of that idea that there's a story that gets created around some of the feelings that might kind of either take them into a negative space or something. So...
well, yes, and a lot of highly sensitive people have been given the subtle message that they're somehow not good enough. Because if you look at the rest of the world,
right,
you're a little bit different, right? As a highly sensitive person, you are a little different, and you notice things a little different and feel them a little different. Not bad or good, just different.
Right.
And so when you don't exactly fit in, it can feel like there's something wrong or something just not right, or I'm just not like everybody else. So then you tend to make up all those stories you were talking about even more so, right?
Right. Okay. But as a business owner, I would think that, anytime you're aware of something, you can usually, you can obviously work on it if you want to, but you can also take it and leverage that as part of your branding, as part of, the message that you have that sets you apart from other people when you're, working with clients or, trying to attract new clients. So,
definitely.
So as a highly sensitive person, do you feel that the highly sensitive person automatically is more intuitive?
I think that, yes, I do feel like highly sensitive people can be more intuitive. I also think that a lot of times they're not aware of it. That they're
Okay.
So another thing that's happened in my practice is that people have come to me not knowing they're highly sensitive.
Okay.
And they come because they have high levels of stress.
So is that how it translates a lot of times into stress and anxiety?
Stress and anxiety, it can also translate into like a lower mood, depressed mood.
Okay.
And health issues.
Okay.
So a lot of highly sensitive people, because of the way that we're not taught how to deal with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a business, that's really important.
Right.
Then
Right.
it can translate into adrenal fatigue, autoimmune conditions,
Okay.
other
Okay.
health issues.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mhm.
So do well. I was going to ask you a life balance kind of a question because it seems to me like if you have a tendency to be more sensitive, then even balancing business and family things like that might be a little more difficult. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Yes, it can be difficult, especially if you're choosing the model that you're going to follow for business,
mm-hmm.
which is right now prevalent is the masculine model of business.
Okay.
Uh, and so if you're following that model, there's that whole should thing, right? Like I should be doing this, this, and this, and I should be working X amount of hours. And if I'm not working on my business, there can be the guilt. And so if you're functioning that way, it can be very challenging,
Mm-hmm.
very challenging.
Yeah,
And so,
you're actually the first guest I've had on who's brought up the whole idea, which is interesting. I don't know why that's the case, but who's brought up the difference between the masculine model and the feminine model. So maybe for people who aren't as familiar with that, do you want to just talk about that for a minute because it's real.
it
And
is real, yes, because business has been run a certain way, right?
mm-hmm.
And so we're taught in society, it's if you think of the male model of business, it's getting things done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Getting doing it in a linear way.
Right.
There's an amount of work. There's the pushing.
Right.
You have to work hard all the time, every time.
Mm-hmm.
That the feminine model is, working in a rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think of the female cycle, there's a cycle.
Right.
Right. There's times of the month where we have more energy, and there's times of the month we want to curl up and just rest.
Right.
Okay. And so the feminine model is, you work in cycles, and there's the receiving aspect of it
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it's very different than you have to, make what is it? Some people say 10 phone calls a day. You have to
Yes.
go to 5 networking events a month. You have to
Yes.
do this, this, and this.
Right.
Right. And if that doesn't not in alignment with you and who you are and
Right.
your rhythm of your life,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to work.
Right. And that's not to say you don't have to necessarily do those things, but you can have them in the numbers and in the ways that work for you. Is
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
You still have to market your business.
Right. Yeah. No getting away from that.
I say the feminine model is you don't market your business at all. Yeah, you just market it in a way that feels good to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, feelings come into play, which has never been a big part of business, but I love Danielle Laporte, and years ago I read her Desire Map book, and it really tuned me into the fact that you're bringing your feelings and your state of feeling into your business is one of the most important things you can do, actually. And I came, I'm older, so I came up, and I was working in a very male-dominated field in accounting and finance way back, and the the mantra was no feelings at work. You never cry at work. Basically you operate like a robot. And so I found it all really fascinating when I started to read how your feelings can be such great guideposts for your life and your business and what you do. So
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and there are more and more women in business. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't want to misquote. There was a statistic I read last year that there's more women starting businesses than men now.
Yeah, I've read that too. I think that is true. I mean, yeah.
Small business, right?
Mm-hmm.
The consumers are mainly women,
mm-hmm.
right? The people that make the decisions,
right,
financial decisions, and what to purchase in the households are mainly women.
Right.
So we actually are. Have that subtle power there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Although sometimes it may not feel that way.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what would you say for the more highly sensitive person? What would be your advice for things where you have to be maybe a little more extroverted and maybe it's not an introvert extrovert issue at all, but things like sales, are there, because they're obviously you're going to have rejection and you're going to have all kinds of things that come up in that process.
Yes. I mean, so yeah, definitely sales are part of business. If you choose to be in business, you have to sell.
Right.
It's just your perspective and how you approach sales.
Okay.
As far as the introvert extrovert thing, what I read in Dr. Aaron's book is that 70% of highly sensitive people are introverted,
Okay.
and 20 or 30% are extroverted.
Okay.
And as a highly sensitive person, it does take effort to be in like a networking group, for instance. Okay, because you can enter that group and you can feel the energy of the room, and it can impact you, and it takes that energy to be able to talk to people that you don't know. That takes more energy than someone that you're familiar with.
Right.
Okay. And so just being ready for that. Don't schedule a lot of things before the networking event. And after
Interesting.
the networking event.
Right.
You know, if you're a person that is spiritual, have some spiritual practices right before you go to the event. Set your intentions before you go to the event.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, do something to have some kind of transition, some kind of taking in what your experience was after the event, so that you're not just completely exhausted
right
for the rest of your day. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's I think that's probably good advice for anyone, but I could see where you know, it's especially good if you if it's a little more difficult for you to gear up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people schedule their day back to back, right? It's one thing and then the next thing, and you don't even have time to really take in your day.
Right.
And before you know it, you're sitting, maybe if you're lucky, at the end of the day on a couch, not wanting to do anything. And you know, so when I look back, for instance, this year flew by, right? And I look back at the year, there are things every week, every month that I say I need to do differently. Right. So I can really enjoy this life and not just have it fly by without, without really being present.
Right.
Being full and conscious.
Yeah. Yeah. Are people who are highly sensitive, are they harder on themselves, do you think, than others?
Yes. So there is some research on that, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't want to misquote. In my experience and what I've seen is that they tend to be harder on themselves because we are not like the majority of the population, because you're different, and because of the subtle messages that you're told that something may be wrong with you, and it's all subconscious. Maybe some of it was conscious, and mainly subconsciously, you're receiving the message that something's wrong with you somehow.
Yeah.
And so you can be harder on yourself, especially if you're comparing.
Yes, that's a great point. So I'm assuming that that's something that you would advise people not to do.
No, because we're all on our unique journey.
Yeah.
You know, I shared about my journey. You know, every time you have a show, there's other journeys, and we meet people when we're out. And we all have different backgrounds, different life experiences, and so when we're comparing, it's like what's that saying? Comparing apples and oranges. Right? You can't compare yourself to someone else. Right. It's never going to be accurate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we do live in a time where everybody is comparing so much that I think there's a giant lesson out there for all of us, you know, you can look at what people are doing so that you can learn some things or whatever, but you can get caught up in the comparing and feel badly, but you can also just waste an inordinate amount of time comparing yourself to everyone. It's kind
especially with social media.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, so. It can. If you allow it to, and you're not conscious about it, you start comparing, and that's just selecting what people want to show you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And we can forget that when we're down that rabbit hole, like you said.
Right. Yeah. So I think for all of us, you know, it's about finding our gifts and talents and communicating those to the world, whatever those are. I mean, this is I think a better world in the sense that, you know, people's authenticity is more, people are out there more, and it's more welcome, I think, for people to be authentic and be who they are. And there's sort of a recognition that everybody is unique and has their own gifts. And so I think it's a good time for people to go out and just let people know, what their gifts are. And for, people who are highly sensitive, who have special, unique gifts, to be able to go out there and use those to leverage their business or whatever else they're trying to do.
Yes. And each person, if you're highly sensitive, and you could be intuitive and not highly sensitive, right? You could be an empath and not be highly sensitive. You don't have to be highly sensitive because you're intuitive.
Right.
And so whatever that strength, your unique set of strengths, using that and being authentic, that's attractive.
It is attractive. I think they're saying now, I think, it used to be when you spoke to a group, a certain percentage of what you were speaking about should be content, and a certain percentage should sort of be story, and and it's completely flipped now. They say like 80% should be stories and your story, and like 20% is actually content that people could use. So I think that's really interesting, but it really speaks to the fact that people want to hear, your story, and everybody seems interested in that. So. Let's go back to intuition then, and just how do we make great decisions in alignment with our intuition? Any tips on that?
Yes. So, earlier I shared a little bit what happens, and I'm retelling this part because it's important to understand how to then use your intuition. When you don't use your intuition, you tend to go by your subconscious programming.
Okay.
Right? So your memories of the past.
Right.
And there's research showing that your memories are not 100% accurate, right? And so if you're going based on your memories of the past and they're not 100% accurate, then that's actually not serving you. And so then we, like I shared earlier when I shared a little bit about my story, that I made decisions based on wanting love, wanting to belong, right? That whole love, safety, and belonging piece. And so we choose based on that, even though those are false beliefs, because if we believe that that's going to bring us love, that's not the path. Okay. Right. So the desire for love there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you think that if I do that, I'm going to get the love. That's where the path is flawed. And so now going back to using your intuition, the first piece of that is the awareness. Right. Okay. So you're aware that this is what this is how I'm behaving. I'm choosing this because of whatever my past was, whatever story I've told myself. And then from there, choosing to do it differently. And some of the ways that you can use your intuition are, I do this chakra clearing, like a meditation, a visualization, to clear out the thoughts, because we have a lot of thoughts. Right. The estimation, I think, is 20 to 70,000 thoughts a day, depending who you ask.
Right.
So just allowing yourself to focus into your heart, into your intuitive center. Okay. And then ask questions. And usually the first answer that comes is the correct answer.
Okay.
And so when I've done this workshop on how to use your intuition. And I did this, one of the things that I demonstrate is this meditation. And the question I get asked often is, how do I know if it's my intuition or my mind making something up?
Yeah, I think that's pretty confusing.
Yes. So that's a great question.
Right.
And since I've heard that multiple times, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Okay. So usually if it's your intuition, it's comes from a voice of love. It's kind, it's loving. It's like if you think about the gentle nudge, right? That's like, this is for you. This is what you need to do, as opposed to your ego or the voice of judgment that comes with any words that are like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you do this?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so that kind of judgmental voice, that's not your intuition.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's
and your intuition is going to push you to grow, to be better.
Okay.
Yes. And not say, oh, that's not come from fear of moving forward.
Yeah. Now that's a question I think that comes up too, is, how do I know if it's fear or if it's, there's potential there for enough of a downside that I should be paying attention to it. That's a tough one as well.
That is tough. And so one of the things that I teach is You think about an experience that you have that was really fear, okay, that you were threatened.
Mm-hmm.
So the example that people use often is like when you're down the dark alley,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and maybe that's not the example. Maybe you've never done that, and see how that feels in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
because your body, when it's real fear, there's a value to that. There's a reason we have that.
Right.
And so, how does that fear feel as opposed to the fear when you think about the first time you spoke, if you're a speaker?
Okay. Okay.
The first time you work with a client, if you work with clients, the first sales conversation you have, and how that fear feels different in your body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that will help you discern, because your body has great wisdom. We just don't listen to it.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point, and those are definitely distinct feelings. Even though they both might get your heart racing, it's very much in a different way. So, yeah, very interesting. So using the way your body feels is part of tapping into your intuition. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, your
Okay.
body is one of the ways that your intuition talks to you.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, how often do we really stop and figure that out? I mean, we're rushing through our day, and rarely do we stop and say, I'm going to check in with my body and see what it's telling me right now. So that's probably a good thing to do now and then.
Yes, especially, have you ever got to the end of your day and a certain part of your body's aching and you didn't notice it till your end of the day?
Yeah, actually.
I mean, that's happened to me, right? My
Right.
knee or my back or something. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, this was probably bothering me all day, but I was not in my body,
Yeah.
right? I was in my head most of the day. And so I'm not paying attention to those signs.
Yeah, this is really interesting because I'm thinking back to my corporate life
Mm-hmm.
and just how kind of drained and exhausted you'd feel, or I would feel at the end of a day. Often, I mean, it wasn't really a once in a while thing; it was pretty regular. And since I've been working on my own, doing things that I am excited about, I don't ever have that end of day feeling. I might be tired or I might, want to go relax, but it's very different. And I haven't really, I haven't given that much thought until right now. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a different type of tired, right?
Exactly.
So hopefully it's a better one
Yeah,
for
it's not
you.
a drained tired. It's tired, but yeah, that was different. That was sort of that feeling like, wow, I just put in all this time and
Mm-hmm.
just sort of that kind of empty, what was it for, kind of tired. I'm not sure
Yes.
how to describe that, but yeah, okay. So that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So other ways that people can tap into their intuition and understand it.
Yeah. So another way that I teach a lot of my clients is through journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And the journaling, usually I recommend using pen to paper because that uses different parts of your brain than the computer than typing. And so stepping away from technology, putting your phone somewhere where maybe even putting on silent so that you're not distracted,
Yeah.
and writing from your heart. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have a question that you need to ask and you're not sure about, just writing it all down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of it's those spiraling thoughts in our head,
Yeah.
being able to write it all down. And sometimes, a lot of times that can bring you clarity, just even sitting down and writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can sort of connect with your feelings in that moment too, and check in
Mhm.
with yourself. Ari, our radio engineer, is smiling because we should start calling this the journaling show because literally, it's come up every single time, and I bring it up, and I just love it. If people at this point aren't journaling, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It's the
Well, I
answer to
will
so many
say that
things.
some clients do not like journaling, although
Yeah,
I recommend that to all my clients.
yeah,
So there's tweaks for those of you that have heard journaling every time of the show. There are different types of journaling. So
right.
I have artists as clients, a couple of artists, and they draw.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because I have a client who's an artist too, and we she does do the journaling because I've asked her to, and she's gotten into it. And but she is a very visual person, and so we try to incorporate, in some ways, some artistic things, and I think that's really helpful, especially for anybody creative. I think that is a little supplement to the regular journaling. That's good.
Yes, it is. And then I also love using oracle cards and angel cards and all those. I know
Okay.
some people may not be open to that. If you are, just picking a random card.
Yeah.
Yes, just picking a random card every morning and what's my message for today.
Hmm.
Um, so things like that, using that kind of some other tools
Now you
to
are
help
the
you
first one
practice.
to bring that up. So, what would you recommend on that? Because I've enjoyed that when I've gone, to speak with somebody and they've pulled a card and said, this is your card, but I
Yeah.
don't, I'm not. I have no background in that, so I'm not really clear on what we're doing. Or, can you just buy a deck of cards and pull one every day? I mean, is there a trick to it? What are you doing
Yeah.
with that?
Yes. All of that. Yes to it all. So this is a great way to practice using your intuition. Okay. So if you're lucky enough to have a bookstore still
Yeah.
around you, going to that section of the bookstore and whatever deck of cards you see there that call to you,
Mm-hmm.
pulling that deck of cards and using that. And
Okay.
they all come with some kind of guidebook.
Okay.
The easiest way is to just, feel the cards, bring your energy into the cards. So they're your cards, and then just pick a card randomly every day. You
Hmm.
can do a spread where you fan out the cards in front of you and then pick one, or you can shuffle and see what card falls out,
Hmm.
and just that's like great way to practice using your intuition every
Yeah,
day.
that's very cool. I like that. I think I might have to go do that myself. That's something I haven't done, but I do know, there's something about that. You choose something, especially in the morning when you start your day, and
Mm-hmm.
it usually is the right thing. I mean, and I don't have the cards, but I have various books that I literally open, to a
Yeah.
random page, and it's so often I'm reading exactly what I needed to hear that day. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it might be a similar experience with
Yes,
the
it is.
cards.
And I use books too. There's one book I like, Julia Cameron,
Yeah.
Answered Prayers.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so you just open a page and it's like tells you it has a prayer. There's another one that I love Colette Baron Reed and Doreen Virtue. Those are my
yeah.
favorite
Okay.
makers of cards.
Okay.
And Colette Baron Reed has one that I like called Postcards from the Universe.
Mm.
You pick a postcard that you receive from the universe every day. Postcards from the divine.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
And
Yeah.
so you pick it and it's a message. It's not just a card, a
Okay.
picture, and it's actually like you got a postcard from someone.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to do that myself.
But there are lots of things that you can do like that
Right.
too. And actually, I'm working on, I just almost finishing the last edits for the jewel cards called the Jewels Inside, which
Oh.
are related to self-esteem, self-worth. And so it has my sister. She's an artist in Austin, Texas. And so it has her art.
Oh,
The
wow.
jewel piece is on, that's the art that I'm using for the cards. And then I've
Nice.
written the text and the exercises on there. So
Oh, how wonderful. When are those coming out?
as soon as I can get them printed. So hopefully in the next month.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. Well, I would recommend that. Where can people go to find those when they're out?
On my website. I will
Okay.
have them available on my website.
Okay.
And I do have a monthly newsletter that I put out. So I will be announcing it on to the people that receive my newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Wonderful.
anyways.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's great. So, I wanted before we get, well, we're moving right along here. So, I want to ask a quick money mindset question because I always like to bring this up on the show where we talk about some financial matters and certainly money mindset. So.
Mhm.
Anything that you're hearing from your clients on a regular basis or something that you help people with either through your coaching or hypnotherapy or, any of your modalities with respect to improving their relationship with money?
Yeah. So, yes, money comes up with almost every client,
Okay.
money mindset. And it's usually instilled in us in our childhood. By the time we're 7 or 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
that's where that starts, right?
Right.
And then our experiences that we can remember in our adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
So how was money spoken about at home?
Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up in a household where money was just always available, or there was a struggle?
Right.
Did you grow up in a household where your parents were gone all the time because they had to work? or they were present. All those things affect how money shows up in our life, because money's energy, right? And so how we believe money is supposed to be, that's how it shows up for us. And so really, I like to start with people with them uncovering what their actual money story is.
Okay.
Again, going back to what I talked about earlier, of like the first step being your awareness.
Right.
Okay. So really being aware what is affecting how I'm behaving right now.
Okay.
And so starting from that awareness of uncovering like all those questions I just asked, and just how it's been showing up in your life now. Okay. And most of the time when a person is working on it, it's not showing up the way that they want it to.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so first uncovering, what are the beliefs that you have about money? Are those beliefs that you want to let go of? And so how can you then start the process of letting go? And so for clients, I'll use hypnosis. They write their new money story, or they find some limiting beliefs, and they'll find evidence that that's not true.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the most popular ones is that you really have to work your butt off to make money.
Yeah.
It's a really popular one, right? And so if they look around them, they will see people that are not working their butt off.
Who are making a lot of money. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not true.
Yeah.
And so the more that you can reprogram your brain, right? Because your brain has been programmed to believe this other thing, the past money story, so that you can see things differently.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. And that takes time, but it's certainly worth the effort to change that. And
our money story didn't happen in one day, so for us to solve it in one day is unrealistic too, right? Right.
And as we travel down that road toward a better money story and changing that relationship, our business naturally evolves, in the right direction. It kind of goes along with that. So it's really important.
Business brings all of that stuff up.
Yes, doesn't it?
Go out and market yourself and bring in that money based on just your mindset, your efforts, and the energy you bring into the world. You can't run away from it. It's going to come in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Yes, you are so right. And and there's a lot of because money is energy, you have to be in alignment with that level of with your energy. That has to be aligned at the level of which you want to earn. So
so when you earn a certain amount and you're used to earning a certain amount, if some stuff is going to come up, some money stuff is going to come up. So then you do work then to move past that next level.
Right. Yeah. It's always the next level, right?
Yeah. There's always, that's part of the fun.
It is part of, yes. I love that too. That is such a good way to look at it, because for a lot of people it's like, oh, that's part of the, the difficulty, but it isn't. It's part of the fun.
We don't have to push all the time.
Right.
So take breaks from it. And yes.
Okay. Well, Kavita, we are almost out of time, so I want to give you a chance to, we actually are out of time. I want to give you a chance to tell people how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so the best way is my website, theenlightenedheart.pro. I have, talking about money, I have a free 5-day abundance, attracting your abundance.
Oh, nice.
Using your intuition, basically, that you receive free if you sign up for my newsletter. I work one-on-one with clients. So if anybody feels like they may be highly sensitive and need some support, they can go to my website and contact me, and we can set that up. I have a limited amount of slots a month.
Okay, right.
That I can offer 30 sessions, right? So they're 45-minute over the phone or video conferencing. If the person's open to it, you'd be surprised how many people don't want to do video conferencing.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. But, so if that's something that some people feel aligned, then I'd love to hear from them.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And, audience, I hope that you'll take advantage of that wonderful offer and go check out Kavita's site. And she has some really powerful ways to transform your life and your business. So, and as you can see, she's a lovely person. So thank you again for joining us today. And And thank you, listeners, for joining us. And we hope to see you every Wednesday at 1 o'clock on ubnradio.com or live streaming from my Limit Free Life Facebook page. And so have a wonderful week. Go out there and find fulfillment, fun, and financial prosperity. Okay. See you next week.